Welcome back to Small Caps, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kerry Stevenson, and today I've asked Siobhan Lancaster, Managing Director of 92 Energy, to come back and give us an update because they've come out with a stonkingly good results out of their Gemini project up there in the Athabasca Basin in Canada. For those of you that don't know, the Athabasca Basin is one of the highest grade uranium areas globally. That means in the world, wherever you want to go, Athabasca is the place to be. Now, I don't think the Aussies understand fully just how important this area is, and the fact 92 Energy have got some fantastic ground up there. We're going to talk about this result. They only listed in April of 21. So where are we now? We're not even in April, so they're coming up to their 2-year anniversary, and these guys are not sitting back. They are really looking at how to scale this project. Don't think the market fully understands what they've got their hands on, but that's why I've asked Siobhan to come back and have a chat with us. Siobhan, good to see you. Thanks for coming back to Small Caps.
Kerry, thanks for the great introduction. As always, fantastic to hear from you. And really, it's a tremendous opportunity that we're talking about with 92 Energy and its Gemini project.
Yeah, and do you know what? I've spoken to you a couple of times in the past. I can almost feel your excitement coming through the screen. Tell us why you've got that big smile on your face and you're so excited, because this is an announcement that's just come out.
Yeah, look, I mean, there was several components to that announcement. So we've just finished our winter drill program at the Gemini project. And the Gemini project, of course, was a uranium discovery that we had on our fourth drill hole ever as a company. So we've been really drilling it out ever since. And really the main aim of this recent drilling campaign was to really show the scale of Gemini, and I think we've really done that. We've really achieved that. We've put a lot of sort of exploration holes into the northern part of Gemini, and it's pulled out some tremendous results in terms of alteration, structure. I mean, it's really the biggest alteration system our geologists have ever seen in the Athabasca Basin, which really tells us there's potential for a lot more uranium to be discovered. And some of those holes intersected uranium very similar to the initial discovery holes at Gemini. So that's to the northern part of Gemini, where we haven't actually really done a huge amount of drilling out. So we need to vector into those holes for the next drill program and really do a very similar drilling campaign to what we did previously to prove out the initial Gemini discovery. The second part of that drilling campaign was to really expand the known mineralization. So those are those pounds in the ground that we already know about. So we drilled 65 meters to the south of the Gemini mineralized zone. And of course, that returned that absolutely bonanza grade hole. We actually had 6% uranium EU308. So that's based on probe results. And that's an amazing result, even at 0.5 meter. So just for your viewers out there, 6% uranium is equivalent to 60,000 ppm. So if you were to compare that to an average mined grade globally, that's about 1,200 ppm. So these grades that we're looking at are 50 times higher than the global average uranium that is mined. So yes,
50.
50. So what this hole tells us is there is potential for this whole system to host really high-grade pockets within it. And of course, high-grade pockets add significantly to the number of pounds in the ground. So that's what gets us super excited. Not only is it the scale, but it's also the ability to host these high-grade areas is really exciting for us.
I want you to kind of talk to me and our audience like we're 5-year-olds in a way, because you said at the start, alteration was really important.
Yes.
Why? What? And it was a comment. I can't remember the exact words you put around it, but it piqued my interest because you said something about this is important globally, like alteration. What does that mean?
Well, so alteration, it's actually hydrothermal alteration. So that basically is when the rocks have been sort of blasted, and it proves that there's sort of fluid pathways going through the system. So you don't see alteration unless there's these massive amounts of fluid moving through an area. Okay. So normally when you see alteration, or often, I should say, when you see alteration, particularly a huge altered system that we're seeing, it really indicates that there's been a lot of fluids moving through and there's potential for really some nice deposits nearby. So that's what gets us excited as well. So really what you need for these Athabasca deposits is you need structure, which we're seeing in all our holes. You need the alteration, which we're seeing in all of our holes. And you also need...
That's okay. You can tell it's live, ladies and gentlemen.
And you also need mineralization, which we're also seeing in some of our holes. So we have the ability then to get into those holes and drill around those holes and really sort of vector into where that uranium is. So those grades that we're seeing 350 meters to the north of Gemini, very similar grades to what we saw in that initial discovery hole at the GMZ or Gemini when we first discovered that. So it's pretty exciting, really.
All right, so you've done 16 is that right?
Correct.
Okay. How do you look at this? What do you do next? I mean, with a project like this, is it about figuring out how big this is? I guess what I'm looking for from an investor point of view is, where are the milestones that you hit? How much more drilling do you need to do? How big is this? How do you scale? How do you look at this and say, this is massive? And you actually said something before, one of the highest grades globally, and the Athabasca is known for that anyway. So I just kind of want to get to the nuts of, what do you do next? How do you expand on this and bring the value to shareholders?
So I think with the next drill program, we'd be looking at still drilling that known mineralized area that we've been drilling. So the Gemini mineralized area. So we've got to drill 65 meters to the north of that area, do some infill drilling there. So we would do that as a priority. We would also drill to the northern part of that mineralized zone. So we really haven't done any drilling there yet, and extend that mineralized area as well. And then the second thing we would do is we would go directly to where those new drill holes are, 350 meters to the north. And we would start drilling in earnest around those drill holes as well. So we would do exactly what we did when we discovered Gemini. We had that one drill hole and we just started drilling around it to work out where the decent mineralization is and where's our starting point to really extend that mineralized area. So that's what the aim of that would be, to try and get into those higher grades. And as you can see from the way we've drilled in the past, you can see that we vectored into the really high-grade components of the Gemini mineralized zone. So we'd take a very similar approach up there north as well. And there was really 3 other areas. So this really was a regional exploration play. An exploration play within the sort of 2-kilometer radius of the initial Gemini mineralization. So we would go to those areas that we felt really strongly represented rock type, alteration type, and similarities to what we're seeing at the GMZ, and they would be drilled as a priority as well. So there's certainly more than one area that we're looking at drilling. Okay. And I think that's the point. The point is that this is a very large system, but this was really about orienting ourselves in this very large system and saying, okay, well, where are we going to focus our attentions on next? So that's really where we've come to. Of course, we'll keep expanding the known mineralization, but we'll also look at up north, 350 meters, concentrate on that area and look at a couple of the other areas that we really feel very strongly about as well.
Okay, I think it's also important, because everyone knows me that I love my gold. I think it's important for us to mention that when you said the 6%, that's the equivalent of over 100 grams per ton of gold. Now, I just want you to think about that, ladies and gentlemen, and pause and say, over 100 grams per ton of gold is what they're finding the grades are up there at the 92 Energy area in the Athabasca Basin, which is quite extraordinary. Now, it's high grade. We've spoken about that. It's near surface. Is it going to go deeper? When do you work out how far down this goes? How deep do you go? Or is it, I guess it's about the drilling campaign.
So today we've really been really drilling to where the granite sort of becomes solid. So that to us is the end of the hole.
Okay.
We haven't really drilled any further than that. So it looks to us like it's near surface for the most part, but just a large sort of near surface area. So rather than going deep, it's sitting sort of more horizontally.
How does this compare to others that are in the Athabasca Basin in terms of its grade? Is it the highest in that area that you've come across?
No, certainly not. So there's certainly very, very high grade Athabasca deposits. So for example, the Hurricane deposit has an average grade of 20%. But these deposits tend to be deeper. So it's very rare to have a really super duper high grade near surface deposit.
Okay.
So this is what I would call sort of on the lower end of the spectrum for the Athabasca, but still very high globally is where it sits.
Right. Okay. And with that, because it's near surface, it's the high grade, but it's economic. Because I guess what I'm looking at is longer term.
I mean, I can't say it's economic because we haven't even got a resource statement out there.
Oh, okay.
But certainly it has all the things where you would have a tick, right? So underground obviously is a more expensive form of mining, and we've been through that before. Open pit is obviously the cheaper form of mining. There is ISR, which they have been testing in the Athabasca Basin. So there is potential for that. But really what we would be looking at, I would think, in this instance is an open pit mine. The grades that we're seeing are very similar to other mines which have been open pit near surface mines in the Athabasca Basin. So these grades have been mined previously, which I think is really important to note.
Yeah.
So you've sort of got two types of deposits in the Athabasca. You've got the really deep ones with super high grades, and then you've got the near surface ones, which are still high grade like ours, but, at the lower end of the spectrum for the Athabasca.
Okay. Can we go corporate for a moment, if you don't mind, Siobhan?
Sure.
You've done this drill program, that's finished. You're going to start a new drill program. What's the money in the bank? How are you going to fund that? What are you looking at, and what's your market cap? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, so let me start with the market cap. So we're sitting in what I would consider an investor sweet spot. So all uranium share prices have really had a shellacking with this broader market malaise, I would call it, and so they're all sort of off by 50%. But what I would say, and what's really important to note, is that this really doesn't reflect where the spot price is. So the spot price has sat at $50 a pound the whole time that equities has pulled off 50%. So in terms of the disconnect between the spot price and the equity prices, doesn't make sense. Second thing I would say is that the spot price doesn't reflect really what's going on with the mid to long-term contracting price. So it's well established in the market that the majority of those long-term contracts are being formed at $60 a pound. So there's a $10 disconnect between those prices. Now the quoted price is $54 a pound, but that quotes the lowest contracted price in the market, right, and not the average price. So it's important to note that difference. So the reason I'm pointing this out is because I think investors for any uranium stock have a massive opportunity here, because I think they've been really overly sold in this market, and it doesn't reflect the commodity and the fundamentals and where the uranium market is moving going forward, which, as you know, there's just been a stream of information about, governments globally going down the SMR path, committing to nuclear, extensions of nuclear power plants, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. So if people
in Europe, sorry to interrupt you there, Siobhan, and in Europe, I think, haven't they put uranium on the critical minerals list?
Yeah, look, it's on the critical minerals list pretty much everywhere. I think in the UK, they just finally classified nuclear as green.
That's interesting.
And obviously it was classified as green as part of the European taxonomy last year. So pretty much everywhere is now recognizing it as green. And that's really important because it means that people can go out and build nuclear power plants and sort of get discounted rates for their debt. which is a really important thing when you're building a big infrastructure project. But more importantly, these SMRs, are really, really fascinating to watch. So that's really exciting for the industry.
Why do you think those are, and I was hoping you were going to say small modular reactors, because not everybody knows what an SMR is. Do you think that's a game changer for this sector?
Look, I do, because I think what it allows governments to do is to sort of replace coal with small modular reactors. They're cheaper and faster to install. The cost of capital is far cheaper, and they can be modularized. So it basically means you can put one small modular reactor in and then go, actually, we need a bit more. And you can just put another one in, right? And so that's a really fantastic feature of these. And of course, they're safer than traditional nuclear was in the past. I should say all nuclear is a lot safer now than it used to be. And it's all carbon-free energy. So it's carbon-free, it's cheap, it's fantastic for countries around the world looking for solid baseload energy, which really you do not get that baseload energy from renewables. So it's a really good solution for governments, and I think you'll really see a lot more in the newspaper going forward on it.
And they're starting to wake up, which is great. So can I just have a big picture? I'm not going to give you the three, wrap it up with three yet. I want to know the big picture for 92 Energy in 23. More drilling, but on a big picture, what's your big vision here, Siobhan, for 92 Energy?
Well, my big vision is to build Gemini into a really strategic deposit. It's an important discovery. I think it can get really amazing scale to it. So we just have to do the drilling and really ascertain what it is. And what I should say is we've really only drilled the western limb of Gemini. There's also the eastern limb that remains. So there's a fair bit of work remaining, but the potential for this is really quite significant, and I think we can't understate the significance of the potential of Gemini. So that gets me really excited. And we've just got to put the work in. But we've been very successful every step along the way. We've done exactly what we said we're going to do, and we'll continue to do that. So we'll continue to grow to grow the discovery and really prove it up as we go forward.
Well, it's proving it up. It's proving the scale. But as you say, when I ask big picture, it's drilling. Put the drill into the ground, find it, scale it, take it from there. All right, Siobhan, we're running out of time. You know the drill. Excuse the pun. Give me 3 reasons why people should be sitting up right now. I think I know them already.
Well, I think we've proven that the system has scale. Yeah. So that's really important. We've proven that Gemini itself has grown in terms of the mineralized part that we know exists. That's grown. It has grade, so that presents a huge opportunity for potential other pods and zones of really high grade mineralization. We're in the investor sweet spot at a $30 million market cap. So, that's I think a very low market cap for what we have at the moment. And we're well funded with money to fund our next drill program going forward.
I think that's a great way to finish up. They are well funded for the next drill program that's coming up. They've come out with some great results. It's the system that just keeps on giving. They just can't put a foot wrong up there in the Athabasca Basin. Potentially Australians don't fully understand it. I know the Canadians do, and the Canadian market loves the Athabasca. I'm really looking forward to what 2023 will bring for 92 Energy. But for now, Siobhan, thanks for joining me on Small Caps.
Thanks, Kerry.